The crows just realized the answer in the sky. Let's be honest, no need to lie. Life is beautiful, just need to try. There's time for love and cry. Everything will pass, something it said. Everything and nothing, no one and the one. Oh, and I. Oh, and I. Mr. Blanchard, who would like to be next?
Thank you so much. I'm next.
Oh, you were next. Okay, that was my next question.
In fact, I'm next after that.
I loved it.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm on.
You're several.
on the list.
There's many Jennifers. All being Jennifer.
Parallel universe.
I'm gonna leave this one streaming just in case it actually records.
Should I try putting it here?
Would you like to?
My hand is shaking.
Oh, baby.
Okay.
Were you the
amazing.
entire
I
time?
was trying.
She's amazing. I'm just going to. Yeah. Maybe not the world's best angle, but we'll have two pretty angles to Jennifer's. Look at this. Would you like a proper intro? Did you get your hair cut or colored or just You know what? Jennifer got her haircut. I have to admit something. I just got a haircut like somebody else. No, like she cut like lots of them. Like lots. Like crazy lots. Yeah, I'm not somebody, as Jennifer knows, having lived with me for a few years, I don't get my hair cut by other people. I just take a pair of scissors and hack and shit and hope that it comes out okay. My mom knew that I was going to a wedding, and I found an e-transfer and a little note from my mother that I had to go get my hair cut, which I did 3 days after the wedding.
Oh.
But the day that she was coming to visit me, so. And no, I didn't lie. I did not pretend that I had gotten my hair cut the way I was supposed to. But I found a hairdresser with like both the receptionist and the hairdresser have black cats, which is kind of a nice thing because we can kind of bond about the whole I live with a micro panther and I never know what's going to happen next thing. Yeah. That said, my very beautiful, lovely friend Jennifer with a beautiful new haircut, which you did yourself. I'm just like, what did I pay for it? I just come to you. I probably could have bought you a nice bottle of wine and afternoon. It was just like,
Instead, you have a beautiful haircut, which I think.
Well, this is a nice haircut. She did a blowout and all that shit too. And she was nice. I told her that I'm like really like a low maintenance person, so she just wet it. She didn't do the whole shampoo shit thing and all that because I'm not. One of the big reasons I couldn't be an actress is because there's no way in the world that I want to sit in a chair getting my makeup and done. Very pleased to have back to the stage Jennifer Venner.
Jen taught me that you can color your own hair with professional grade color, which I'm really grateful. Thank you. We learned a lot from each other in our decades. So some of you who may have been here a few weeks ago heard me read a story about waking up in a strange bed with strange men, one of whom was not really a stranger, he was my husband. And my daughter had to like put her fingers in her ears and go la 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 the whole time. She's not here tonight. I'm going to read part 2 of that story because I ended it very with a no ending because it wasn't finished. So as a recap, I woke up one morning in Moscow with my husband and another man in the same bed, not remembering exactly how I got there. I was really young. This was a long, long time ago. You wouldn't even recognize me. You weren't that, not too young.
I was, no, I wasn't like, underage.
I just wanted to make sure.
I was married.
You're in your 20s, right?
I was 23. Living in Moscow in the 90s, and anything can happen in Moscow in the 90s. Anything at all. And something did. So, after I left that room and left those men in a panic, I found myself walking down the street in Moscow near the Kremlin in December, wearing no underwear or pantyhose, but a coat and boots. So this is how I got home. Perhaps it would have made more sense to go back to the apartment, confronted Klaus and Sergei about what happened the night before. I stopped on the bridge, looked up at the tiered building, tried to pick the window that knew the story, imagine myself returning to it. But it all seemed too long ago now. So I kept walking. The few cars on the road slowed as they approached, hinting they might give this poor frozen girl a lift. I wasn't troubled by them. Sergei and I hailed rides all the time after the Moscow metro had closed. It was a common practice in a city with no taxi companies, an honor system that worked well. Still, I marched on, determined to find a metro station. I was going to find my way home, even if I was still somewhat drunk and had never been alone before in this blisteringly unwelcome city. Finally, the cold got to be too much. I stopped and turned when the last driver edged his vehicle to the curb. He rolled down his window, cigarette a stub in his gray mouth. I used my few words of Russian, and we settled on a price. I slid into the back seat. The car was warm, but not ingratiating. The driver, a man in his 50s, they were all men in their 50s, flicked his eyes up to the rearview mirror frequently as he drove, wondering where this young woman with the foreign accent was from, but said nothing. In the world going about their business, Muscovites are brusque and suspicious. They do not make casual conversation. They'd honed a mute, hostile resignation from decades of waiting in line for everything. I could rest my head against the car window, close my eyes, and doze, unmolested. The drive to the apartment was about an hour long, and the lot bumped and rattled along the almost deserted boulevard heading north. Every time I woke up, I saw the same buildings. We lived in a suburb in the far north of the city, in one of the thousands, tens of thousands, of prefabricated apartment blocks that ringed the perimeter like dominoes. Push one, and they'd all topple. They were so anonymous, so interchangeable, that you come to notice the small details that distinguish their courtyards from one another. The car with no tires, the tallish pine, the crowing rooster on someone's balcony. After I paid the driver his 50,000 rubles and limped into the dark lobby of our apartment building, I discovered the elevator was broken again. I mounted the stairs to our third floor flat wearily, wondering how people on the 20th floor managed. At our apartment's steel door, I shook my purse, fumbled in it for my keys. There were none. I checked my pockets. Nothing.
I turned and slumped against the door, then slid to the floor. The tears flowed from the inside out. Their warmth washed the inside of my skull, illuminated the corpuscles of my blood, and bathed every nerve. I was made of weeping. Our very elderly next-door neighbor Svetlana appeared in her doorway. She asked me what was wrong. She looked very worried. Nichivo, I told her, shaking my head. I knew that saying nothing was impolite. It also wasn't true. I couldn't explain why I was alone, bare-legged, keyless, in any language. Svetlana took a step back, opened her door wider. Comforting smells of cinnamon and rye bread drifted into the corridor. Пожалуйста, she said over and over. Please. I got to my feet and did as I was told. Svetlana was small and tidy in her house dress with the pinafore apron, which all Russian women wear indoors. She bade me to remove my boots and slide into a pair of tapochki, slippers, which every household offers to guests, keeping pairs in all sizes by the door. They are there to protect against the cold concrete floors in these prefab buildings. She may have remarked on my bare feet, I'm not sure. Svetlana's husband, Alexei, sat on a low sofa in their very small sitting room. He stood to greet me, clasping both my hands in his own, smoothing them over and over, perhaps relishing their untested youth. Sergei and I had visited with the couple before. My husband and I listened to their remarkable stories about the Great Patriotic War, in which Alexei had been a soldier. He had shaken his head when he said, "It was an honor, but a tragedy." On our visit, the couple had fussed over us, making tea, offering biscuits. Memory adorned their tiny flat with photos, tchotchke behind glass cupboards, lace and mismatched cushions and small oriental carpets. Everything we cherished. I was led to their tiny table near a window. I sat and tea appeared. Svetlana sat adjacent to me, stroking my hand, issued a patter of endearments and assurances. Perhaps she thought that if she simply kept talking, the words would magically light up with meaning, and I would understand them. I did understand, and smiled. Shyly, I murmured my few phrases. Thank you. Thank you so much. So much thank you. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm tired. Very, very tired.
Wow, I've got such memories of my my own Russian grandmother and her so many. Oh, that's awesome! Thank you.
Yeah.
Woo!
Quality should be much better.
Great, thank you so much. So cool. Yeah, no, my Russian grandmother was Bella, and she was a tiny little neat woman, and always had that apron. The ubiquitous. I didn't even think of it until you said that. That's such a factor of my. Anyhow, I'm just gonna check and see how's the framing on that. What do you think? Is that were we good?
It's pretty.
Hey, oh no! Next, we're going to have our first feature reader. I'm thrilled to have gotten this gentleman down here because I am a crappy friend to him. It's true. I suck. I don't always respond to people's texts, but I will see now. I will always respond to your text because I am so embarrassed that I've been so shitty as a friend.
Mainly my flirtation
This is a wonderful sci-fi author. I think I met you when you were working on putting together the campaign for Amazing Stories. Was it?
No, there were two, me and Ira were in bed. And you woke up.
I don't remember that. Anything that happened in Russia in those years, I completely disavow.
It might have been. He was doing a podcast. He was doing a podcast.
That's right,
Amazing
yeah.
Stories.
That's right.
And there you were, we were drinking wine.
And yes, and having a lovely time. Hugh and I are both, when I'm a science fiction writer, I am much more in the same company as Hugh. We have a friend who was the editor for a few years of Amazing Stories magazine, which was exciting. I had a story published in Amazing Stories, and now I can say that. What the hell? He's your friend. That makes me happy that there's not as much nepotism in the publishing business as I thought. Why don't I just introduce you, because I'm excited. I'm apparently, I think, going to try accompanying Hugh, giving him some, do you still want some musical?
Yes, I do.
Okay, awesome. Yeah,
It's improvisational, by the way.
an improvisational musical underscore that I will be providing on the piano, provided we get the piano working quickly. Yes, and I will just let Hugh introduce himself, and then hopefully it'll take long enough for me to figure out the keyboard. Woohoo! Everybody, this is Hugh A.G. Spencer.
Before we, are we doing okay here with the mic?
Yeah,
Good,
fine.
good. Before we start, I want to thank Jen for inviting me. It's great to be here, and I want to thank all of you for coming. It's really a lot more people than I thought, and I also want to thank the Bampot Tea House and Board Game Place. I've never been here before, but I have to say I had the best wrap and sandwich I've had. This is great vegan memory.
I agree.
You agree? And I just want everyone to, I want the millions who are watching us on live stream to come here tomorrow and just make them millionaires so they can drop their prices. No, they're very reasonable prices. This is, I'm going to read from my first novel, my second novel published by Brainlag Publishing. Wonderful people, and it's called The Hard Side of the Moon. Any allusions to Pink Floyd are completely intentional, because the story starts in a university radio station. But what I'm going to do to get you caught up, because we're going to read something very near the end of the book, I can just read you the flap with the synopsis. That's how you get you caught up here. In southern Alberta, in the late 1970s, Matthew Bishop has a pretty decent life. Sure, he doesn't have a girlfriend, but he has all the science fiction books, a monthly mail order subscription to bring him, a collection of Canadian synth rock on vinyl, and a gig with the university radio station with which to share them. But things take a turn for them. They're majorly uncool when his commie best friend is assaulted by the man, capital M. A high school hobby becomes a citywide political statement, and his mom is set to marry the world's biggest tool and leave him homeless. What's a slacker majoring in fuck all to do? She blotted out part of that word. Because, I don't know, she could buy. Well, it could be worse. At least he isn't imprisoned in an extraterrestrial slave labor camp, right? Well, it is extraterrestrial, but it's just the movie. So I'm going to read you from chapter 16. We'll start with that. Our character Matthew's been working the assembly lines when they're building something on the backside of the moon, and nobody knows it. It's late at the end of the 70s. And I have actually, yes, got the wrong chapter. My apologies. Chapter 15. Dr. Bauman. 0843. You and Dr. Bauman will be spending a lot of time together for the next while. The middle management drone, who must have once fancied himself to be some kind of silver fox, led me into the training center meeting room where the doctor was waiting for me. Bauman sat at the table, hair so short it was almost impossible to tell what color it was. Dirty blonde, I think. Ramrod straight back and heavy black rimmed glasses. She was wearing a dark gray zippered coverall, and I had no idea what division of Progressive Apparatus / the SS she was from. Progressive Apparatus is the somewhat incompetent corporation that runs this operation. The ex-fox grinned at me. Dr. Bauman is a physician. Oh, she was a medical type doctor. No wonder she didn't look familiar. As a designated health and safety volunteer, that's a job that Michael was voluntold for, I noticed that we didn't have too many of those up here at the plant. She is going to walk you through some new health and safety intervention procedures and exit X-Box. Dr. Bauman pressed the switch that was set into the table, and the light at the far end of the room revealed half a dozen crash test dummies, all dressed in denim union suits, sitting on some folding chairs. The dummies reminded me of my old capocoids. That's that political thing that happened on Earth. As a volunteer health and safety officer, you are often the first on the scene of unplanned industrial events. I just nodded, not really sure where all this was going. Bauman continued. Your ability to apply what I'm about to show you could save the company significant amounts of time, materials, and money. Dr. Bauman stood up and walked over to a wheeled metal cabinet. I am going to simulate a number of scenarios. Sure. Dr. Bauman was going to show me how to save time, materials, and money. Not lives. This doctor was definitely working for Progressive Apparatus. She slid open a drawer at the top of the cabinet and removed a ball-peen hammer. Then she took a moment to get a good grip on the handle and swung the hammer into the head of the nearest dummy. That was me making a completely involuntary noise. Dr. Bauman was not an excessively large person, nor was she obviously very muscular. However, she must have been pretty strong because she made quite a dent in that dummy. Maybe she was thinking about somebody she didn't like very much when she brought that hammer down. She looked over at me. Could you please come closer, number 802701? That's Michael's official name. I really didn't want to comply with that request, most likely because she was still holding the hammer. Please. The way she said please didn't mean please, it meant obey. I obeyed. Notice the impact area on the cranium. About 1/3 of the dummy's head was a cracked crater. Are you looking carefully? Yes. I didn't add my thoughts about horrified fascination. Could you please tell me what kind of equipment or process failures on the lines might cause an injury like this? My first impulse was to suggest a psychotic doctor wielding a metal hammer, but that event seemed pretty unlikely outside this room. I tried to think hard about this objectively, logically. Think like a Vulcan, Bishop. It'd have to be something at least the size of a fist, traveling at high speed. Dr. Bauman nodded as I spoke. So it would be likely to be a compression breach or a container breakdown. Where is that likely to happen? Okay, detective time. This is getting more like Columbo than Star Trek. Up around the final assembly area is where you'd find the hard couplings that would be about the right size and weight to be a suitable projectile. Dr. Bauman smiled and put the hammer back in the cabinet. I smiled too, because I suddenly felt in less danger. So you will know what you can only expect this kind of heavy head injury at a specific phases in the production process. That made sense, but it seemed like a pretty pointless observation to me. If some intern had that sort of injury, there was SFA, sweet fuck all, that Mr. Health and Safety here could do to help. Dr. Bauman took the damaged head in both hands and twisted it off the body. That prior awareness may save you a few seconds, because while the region around the injury will be of no use to us, the other hemisphere of the brain, if you can locate the cranial bleeding and not bruise the tissue too badly during the removal process, can still provide some useful neural matter. Useful neural matter? You mean like brains? The doctor responded with a condescending smile and took a felt pen from a zipper pocket and started drawing dotted lines on the broken head. These are the points where you want to make the incisions. And after a few observations, Dr. Bauman put the damaged object and a used range of hammers to smash the fresh dummy heads from a, sorry, I have to start again. After a few more observations, Dr. Bauman put down the damaged object and used a series of hammers to smash more dummy heads from a variety of angles. While she did this, she explained how each injury type presented different harvesting opportunities. Apparently, it was particularly important to try and keep as much of the frontal lobes and hypothalamus intact as possible. Some cortical structures may offer more potential computing power than others. Right. Makes total sense. Waste not, want not. Eventually, Dr. Bauman took out a machete and approached the next to last dummy. We don't simulate blood because that gets too messy, so messy that you can't see the separation points caused by the occurrences. We certainly didn't want any mess if we could possibly avoid it. Now, if we get a driver detachment as a drive as a tool, at the same time as a pressure surge, my nightmare scenario with Angie on the lines. Angie's a girl he's sweet on the assembly line. Dr. Bauman held the machete with both hands and swung the blade through the dummy's neck. Could have been made of butter. You would think that a neat decapitation would be an ideal injury for a full grain harvest. An ideal injury. The dummy's head bounced off the floor. However, there is still the potential for forced trauma, and the tissue around the brainstem can bleed out and dehydrate surprisingly quickly. The head rolled to the far end of the room and came to a stop. I will say that I knew I was coming to a very nice place, so I wanted to choose a passage which I thought would completely gross you out. I thank you. Thank you, Joe.
I think Jennifer's got the list.
Yes.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, because I'm old, I forget
Duh.
things.
Photios is next. Yeah, that's right. Photios.
I did bring some copies of my books, if you feel like purchasing them, because I am a filthy capitalist.
I'm still learning how to filthy myself. Thank you. Thank you very much, Hugh. I don't know if I added anything, but I really wanted.
You made the performance.
Sorry, just before the next word. I really wanted like like a cheese organ sound, like
Next time.
yeah. I actually got to hear Jane Siberry improvising the soundtrack to an entire movie. And apparently this movie was traveling across Canada with different musicians doing different performances. And I really kind of hoped I was going to hear the Nash the Slash one. Because when I was, the very first Comic-Con I ever went to was in London, Ontario. Yes, yeah, for some reason they had them. And it was, Nash the Slash was actually traveling around doing soundtracks to silent movies. So he was improvising to, I think I saw The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and his own version of Metropolis. And that was just fantastic. And I've always kind of had a hankering to play backup for people, just like improvising and stuff. I always loved going to Second City because they always had a musician who was like improvising for the, like their musician would improvise for all the stand-up stuff.
Without you,
May I just say so? You will never work again! Oh no, anytime. You just call out my name. Did we say that Photios is next?
Yes.
I love that. Okay, you gotta see this. Jonathan's actually got a pair of glasses with a reading light attached to them.
Cool.
Can I show them to the viewers? Okay, tell me this isn't really freaking cool.
I can't see you, Jen.
I can't see you either. They're prescription.
Resistance is futile.
I was just about to say it.
No, okay. Now I'm going to be thinking about Roddy Piper and They Live. Okay, I am doing great with the dated references tonight. I would love to bring up our next reader and move the show along. Photios. Woo! Photios You might want to make it
Yeah.
much taller.
This is a very long poem.
Or very tall.
You don't want to be bending over. Okay, that's great. I'm not gonna. That's great.
Yeah.
Photios, are you Greek?
Yes.
I'm Greek.
Elinas.
Elinas.
Fotis.
Thank you.
Okay, the poem is titled What Am I? 5 syllables here, 7 more syllables there. Are you happy now? It's a haiku, and obviously it's not written by me. I'm far anything for but a writer, but it was written by Lucinda. So I write numbers. Is that good enough? That's it.
They changed the microphone for that?
Yeah,
Oh, no. I'm sorry, that is not, it took longer.
That's awesome.
No, I keep my haikus short and
I think they're designed that way.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the only time Lucinda ever colors within the limits. So way to sneak it back up for a second. Is there such a thing as like a literary beard? Like she basically just got you to just okay. Yes. Next, our next reader is a delightful woman that I've been enjoying. Not that the rest of you aren't delightful.
And enjoying her house.
Her company, but not in bed, like you do with fortune cookies.
What? Say that again? What?
Well, okay, you're supposed to read your fortune cookie fortune, then you say in bed at the end of it.
Oh.
No.
You guys didn't play this game?
No.
Yeah, the 2 words that are deleted from every fortune cookie.
Yes. Yeah. You will meet a tall, dark stranger in bed.
You will find fame and fortune.
In bed. Yeah. We used to add, because I was reading a biography of this Canadian called Will Hunt, who changed his name to the Great Farini and liked to do slack rope walking, which is like tightrope walking, except more dangerous because the rope isn't tight. I'm serious, this is no joke. And he used to tightrope walk across the Niagara Gorge on a rope that swayed in the wind. So I was always really impressed with him. So to the end of fortune cookies, I like to add over the Niagara Gorge on the slack rope. That all being said, completely having nothing to do with our next guest, I would like to introduce, please welcome to the stage, Aya.
Hello everyone, it's nice to be back. This one is a poem that I wrote back in July. One of the things that I like to ask people about actually is whether or not they believe in love. I'm a passionate supporter of love. I believe that love has many forms and can be expressed in many different ways, which is what makes it forever such a beautiful feeling. So when a friend of mine told me that they believed that love was not possible for them just because of how much they'd been hurt in the past repeatedly, imagine my reaction to that. I decided to write about it because I knew that they weren't alone in that feeling, and I think a part of me deep down resonated with that. We can be very generous human beings to others, but I find that we're often so stingy and harsh when it comes to giving love to ourselves. And this one is called Words from a Veteran. Your name translates as look at the moon in my language. I trade the fluency of my English to speak the one you do, hoping to ease the anguish without you ever seeing what's underneath the bandage. Do you see me hopeless like the rest of them do? You're precious and unscared, while I'm a wounded animal that gave up the hunt. Why deprive your heart of a new start and punish it with a sentence heavier than your original crime. To take off again, for you, I would. But my plane is no fighter jet. Once in flames it blew, and that you cannot undo. For my loves I have suffered, and only by disappointment was I ever smothered. What about the rest of them? They're selfish consumerists, swooped by the packaging, overlooking what's within. But you mustn't give up. Always move slowly, and keep loving yourself steadily, out of the despair I'm trapped in so very hellishly. Thank you. I'm quite sure this is okay. So this next one is quite an old one, and it's I left Syria after the revolution started and before the war escalated. I was a 12-year-old who was chanting, "The people want freedom from dictatorship," big words that I did not fully grasp the meaning of, but one thing was very clear and seemed to have outweighed it all. It was that I loved my country. I loved my country even if it didn't love me back. I remember that day at the airport in Damascus, saying goodbye to Grandpa Abu Hassan, who passed away last year, my great aunt Shahrazad, and a few of my uncles and cousins. They tried to suppress their tears and lessen my sadness by reassuring me that it would only be a year or two. Justice will prevail, the dictator will fall, and we'll be back. As of May 5th, 2022, that was 10 years ago, the war didn't end, the revolution didn't go anywhere, and a good number of the people I loved died before I could ever go back. And now, I don't know if I'll ever go back. So this one is called I Died When I Was 12. Today's blue sky has a resemblance to what I can remember of you. Last night's moon was almost as big as the one I used to chase on your soil. The narrow street I crossed the day before yesterday that I thought would lead me back to you. A small grocery shop from the day before that, which I mistook for Ammo's Dukkan, my uncle's grocery shop in our village. The scent of jasmine flowers that I picked up the day before that revived an old image of Teti, Grandma, teaching me which are the best ones to pick. And the chilly wind that crossed my shoulder many, many days before that threw me down the wells of my memory. And I swear, my love, I swear that I drowned screaming your name until the dirty water infiltrated my blood, marking the death of a 12-year-old inside me. Thank you. That was my first time ever reading that, so thank you very much. This last one is actually a very short one that I wrote the day that Roe v. Wade got overturned in the States. I was infuriated, like many of my friends and people, women across the world, of what that meant to us as a collective female entity. They went after abortion in our neighboring land. What could guarantee that we're safe here? I fought very hard to gain my autonomy as a young Middle Eastern woman. I came to this side of the world because of a promise that I'd be safe and have my rights respected as a woman in comparison to where I came from. So yes, I was mad with about all the progressiveness that we have in North America. We've still somehow allowed this to happen, and I had to scream it out to reassert what the world is trying to steal from us again as women. So this one is A Witch in Power. I am a woman, a creature so bewitched that frightens the living shit out of you and everyone you knew. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, you almost brought me to tears. it's funny, I was at 12 years old, I started working at City Lights bookstore in London, which was owned by a guy called Mark Emily, who loved fighting against the law. He got to the point where he had broken the law so many times that they would no longer arrest him. I had my name taken by the cops for the first time when I was, I think, 13. He was bringing in some banned albums and literature from the States to sell in Canada. We were very heavily censored in terms of a lot of our like sexual content in those days. So I loved being an activist, and it was immensely safe, really. Like I alienated my family from that part of me, but I was in no physical danger. And the cops thought it was cute half the time. So just the idea of that being my experience, and then what you were going through at the same time. Oh, you beautiful person. I'm so glad you. I love everybody here. You guys are all just amazing. Thank you all so much for coming and just sharing and pouring out, and even being co-opted into reading other people's poetry. It's just such a special night all the time. We're gonna have one more reader, and then we're gonna have another feature reader. Not that the people who aren't featured are any less important. I just give them more time. So next, can we have a big welcome for Flipperoo?
Thank you, Jen. Okay, so I too have books for sale. I've had books for sale every time I've come, I just never mentioned it. Yeah.
Take some pages out of the capitalist book.
There you go. They're $10. Or the capitalist book, only $10. There you go. Discounted. The Honest Ed's approach. This book is called Pinpricks. It's all short poems. And I got sick of thinking of titles, so I just called them Pinprick 1, Pinprick 2, Pinprick 3, and so on, all the way through to a rather high number, 86. Yeah. And then actually put an index of first lines in the back so you could find the pinprick you wanted. The idea behind it was that these poems had to be short, sharp, and memorable. Like the prick of the pen. Yes.
I think this is the first time ever that you're holding something.
Oh, well, there you go. I'll pick up the mic too, though. Anyway, it's called Pinprick 11. Abandoned trousers in the street, a young face out a window. Someone waves an ancient flag, a glass of wine falls over. A line of cars run out of gas. Bets are placed on politicians. Dogs are freed from a kennel. A summer storm destroys a city. Soldiers put their helmets on. Debates are staged for television. Sticks of incense near an altar lose their scent to time. And this next one is from the other book I have for sale, which is called Breathe Now. And the poem is called Deep in the Night. And what can I say about Breathe Now? It's older than this one, but not as old as the ones that are out of print. How about that? Deep in the Night. Pre-dawn drizzle on a tattooed soul. Pre-dawn drizzle on a tattooed soul. Expectation amputated from faith. Inside a skin less innocent than old. Waiting for the angels to fall from the sky. Rapture and thrust. High strung and hard. Little things dying. Moaning in the crowd. The heart seldom beats in rhythm with wisdom. Dreams like serpents twist with thought. The nature of fire is to always consume. High-strung and hard. High-strung and hard. Inhale the fantastic. Cough and choke. Teeth can be broken, chewing on hope. In spiritual chaos, angels die. Feel the storm slash through the crowd. Know that the gut, know that the gut, know that the gut can seldom feel just rapture and thrust. High-strung and hard, inside a skin less innocent than old, the inarticulate caresses cerebral anxiety. Listen to the voice of an urban world. Lonely concrete, electric light. Hustle, 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 hustle of a squeegee against cold glass. Something for throat, something for vein, something for under pulsating tongue. Expectation amputated from faith. Rapture and thrust. Rapture and thrust. Ideals are anchors, slow to rust. Potential is myth, future, flux. Beat in rhythm. Dawn burns the crowd. Dawn burns the crowd. Thank you.
That's the flip, you know.
There you go.
I don't recognize you with a book in your front of your face.
I know.
Oh, it just makes, yeah, I used to work as an artist model, and somebody came up to me once and said they didn't recognize me with my clothes on.
Whoa.
That's actually an apocryphal story. It doesn't really happen. It was the
They
other way around.
recognize you moving.
Yeah, that's right. I thought you only had one facial expression.
Slightly
Doing
stoned.
that. Yeah, people were watching and like, okay, the video just froze. Okay. Next, I'd like to bring up our next featured reader, and then we have Majnun and Alex, if you guys want to be on deck, like you would be if you were at a baseball game, like the one that Lucinda terrorized.
What can I say?
You are the terror of mascots everywhere. Really pleased to have back to the stage a writer who's been reading us his novel, one chapter at a time. This is Jonathan Greenbaum. I'm going to fall over his name because I've said it way too many times. No, never.